Hey, welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I'm Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm really good. Thank you very much. And yourself?
I am fantastic. I'm excited for today's conversation. So, what are we diving into today?
Well, last time we talked about giving ourselves permission to be ourselves and knowing it's enough. And what ties in with that, in my mind anyway, and my mind goes in 15 different directions, is this the sense of resilience. First of all, what are the key components of resilience? Because I look at resilience as adaptability, mindset, which talks about are we enough, and emotional well being as starters. Okay. So tying into the concept of permission, how does it intersect about how we make decisions? If we feel we're not enough and we have to make a definitive decision, how does it impact that? And how do we
Hmm.
turn that into resilient decision making? Because, think of a time where you had to make a very tough decision or you were challenged with something.
Yeah.
And if you think you're not enough, how does that impact your decision? And how do you turn it into resilient decision making instead? So, impact your risk tolerance, problem solving skills, willingness to step out of your comfort zone, all of that kind of stuff. So, I wanted to, I know that I could um, separate it into categories, right, about risk and everything else. But first, I want to get your take on this. If some of us, don't feel that we're enough, or we self-deprecate, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
how does that influence how we make decisions?
Well, I think we've talked about this on a past episode. Henry Ford's quote: "If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." Right.
Right.
So the reality is, I think at the end of the day, one of the quickest ways to really bump up your resilience confidence score is to look at your life where you made decisions that actually turned out for all the right reasons, right? There was a positive outcome. And I think when you start looking at those things and you start trying to figure out how many times you've actually, maybe unsure, but you guessed right, you made the decision, you went forward, and something positive came out of it. Maybe it was a big decision to make a move to another town for a job, or to make a career shift, or a decision in the moment at work that ended up being, the right call. I think we have a tendency often to not look at our past wins and look at those things from the point of view that really helps us realize that we probably have a pretty strong ratio of making more positive decisions than we do negative. And I think that actually helps kind of reinvigorate the mindset that you do know what's going on. You do have the skill sets, the mindset, and the experience necessary to make the right decision in the right moment, and that you have to recognize that, and then give your resilience, bring it out into the world, let it breathe a little bit, and realize how your resilience in those moments really did manifest into something great. I think that we don't often look at ourselves as resilient creatures, and almost all of us are. We have vastly crazy experiences that are really designed to undermine us and to, to tap us down in a lot of ways. And yet, most of us somehow seemingly come through those things through a series of circumstances and decisions by which we actually had a direct hand in. But we never give ourselves the credit. We never take the time to celebrate the wins or to appreciate what went into the win. I think that's a really critical factor in helping you figure out how resilient you really are.
I was thinking that if, when we put ourselves down, resilience is not visible.
Hmm. That's
Resilience
true.
is elasticity, right? It's the way to bounce back after you take a hit.
Yeah.
When we're self-deprecating and we don't feel we're enough, we focus on where we screwed up, where we went wrong, where we didn't measure up, and all of that. And the conversation pretty much ends there. And we own it, and it's just
Hmm.
another tick on our list of where we just didn't measure up,
Yeah.
as opposed to taking your mindset and saying, What did I learn from this? So you're going into a growth mindset. Whether or not I screwed up or whether or not I made the wrong decision, what did I learn from this that I'll take with me to the next situation,
Yeah.
first of all? The second thing is, what is the adaptability of the decision? Very rarely is something totally black and white. Often it could be course corrected. When we're resilient and we bounce back, we could say, wait a minute, if I just move a little bit in this direction,
Yeah.
I'll be able to save the day, or I'll be able to turn this around. Or now that I learned this and learned about what my triggers are or how I make a default decision, that's not going to happen twice. So it's a growth mindset and it's a boomerang kind of mindset because it really turns you around and brings you back, in another direction. It's also looking at risk from a risk perspective, not a I screwed up perspective.
That's
So
I
when
love
we,
that.
when we make decisions, if we're making it saying, I don't measure up, who am I to make this decision? I'm just going to screw up anyway. Whatever I decide to do, it's just going to tank. All of those stories that we tell ourselves when we don't feel that we are enough, that we're just us. And instead, we look at it from a perspective of, okay, is this decision adaptable? What am I bringing to the table from past learnings, from my own experience, from what I know? And if I don't know something, I'll tap into somebody who does know so that I make the best informed decision that I can and dance with it, not wait for it to clobber me over the head. So, what are the conversations we're having with ourselves when it comes to our decision making capacity and to make it resilient, fluid, to dance with it, to navigate it as it's happening? What
Yeah,
has to change?
I think I love that because I think it really does help people recognize a different approach in the moment. And I think that you need that. That's part of the questions that we ask on this program are really designed to shake you up in those situations that you might not otherwise recognize. A question could shift everything, could drive a completely different outcome. And we sometimes just go headlong into a situation, and when you look at these things and you think, well, I gotta deal with this, I've got to make the decision, and then you allow the cloudiness of your lack of confidence or your just that uneasiness of the situation to take over. It's easy to default to the negative side and just stay there. And these questions actually help you shift in the moment to get back to neutral, to look at things from maybe both the positive and the negative, right? But be able to say, hey, this is the potential downside, this is the positive upside. What is the decision that I'm going to make? And then I think that if you can always look at yourself as I'm a survivor. I am someone that always seems to come out on the other side of any circumstance in a more positive, with a positive result. And just the simple fact that as what you've done up to this point in your life, you already are sort of the embodiment of resilience. Allow yourself to have the confidence that you will. Yes, does that mean that you'll make some decisions that don't go the way you want them? Yeah, that's going to happen. Sometimes there are circumstances out of our control that we just don't aren't able to solve. But the flip side of that is look at everything that has fallen in your favor, things that have turned out in with a positive result. And if you're going to lay bets on anything, lay your bets on yourself and allow yourself to have that confidence to look back at your past successes, your past wins, and realize that the odds are pretty good in your favor that you're probably going to make whatever this decision is, you're probably going to make the right one. Maybe not always, but more often than not, you're likely to make the right one. And I think those things are super powerful, and they're good guides for us in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And your point is really a good one because you could make some good decisions, you can make some bad decisions. Things could go well, they could tank, whatever it is. But It's the decision that wasn't the best one. It's not you that isn't the best person.
Right.
There's a defining line there. So I'm thinking, I have people looking for moving on in their careers, changing jobs, looking for what else is out there. And how do I make a decision? How do I know that it's right to leave to go somewhere else? All these questions that I'm getting
Yeah.
asked on a regular basis. And, I say to them, assess the risks. What are the risks of trying?
Yeah.
If you still have your current job, there's nothing stopping you from looking around and seeing what's out there. So assess the risks, and not whether or not it's necessarily more money or fewer working hours or whatever. That's not going to intrigue you. The bottom line is, how is it going to enhance your skills,
Yep.
keep you on the edge of your seat, and energize you? That's what you need to look at. And embrace a growth mindset. What could I learn? Um, what are the possibilities if I move to this, like a new area of practice, whatever it is? And seek diverse perspectives. We always think we need to make the ultimate decision. Doesn't mean that we can't have input from people who've been there, done that, other people in our lives who know us so well, to say that,
I
this
love
is
that.
how I
Yeah.
see you. And, to take it into account, to inform the decision, not dictate it, and ultimately regulate your emotions, because it's the emotional stuff, the not measuring up stuff, the feeling of inadequacy stuff, um, the self doubt, all of that, which is what gets in the way of us leading a fulfilled life. That's the bottom line. To
That
make a
is.
resilient decision is to be able to dance with the good or the bad or whatever we get ourselves into, and not put ourselves down because of it, but to actually pump ourselves up because we learned a valuable lesson. And I think that that is really one of the keys that is important for us in every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, I agree. It's I know somebody maybe watching this episode will be like, "Well, that's easier said than done." So, you know, but this is the thing. If you default to that as your, well, hey, that's great for you guys, it probably wouldn't work for me. That's something you need to catch yourself in the moment, because if that's the reaction, when the time comes and the opportunity presents itself, you're probably going to fall back into old habits anyway. That's all the more reason why you need to be facing these things head on. You need to look at these things that we're putting on the table, these suggestions, and recognize that you could be, probably should be, looking at these things a little bit more closely for your own life and your own circumstances, and don't run from the internal conversation and the dialogue that needs to take place, because I think it's an opportunity for growth. And that's what I love about these topics and these conversations. I feel like every single time we show up, to have these conversations, Donna, it's, yeah, I'm learning as much as I'm trying to share. Right? Life is a combat sport. You're constantly trying to add to your tool set and your skill set and your ability. And so I identify with a lot of these things that tend to happen. And I don't give myself enough credit about the resilience that I've had as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a husband, as another human being. And just this alone makes me want to go back to my journal and start recalling those things and looking at those past experiences, because in those past experiences are lessons, and those lessons are what ignite the fire in my belly to want to do better the next time, or show up for the next battle, the next big decision, the next big thing, with more confidence and more enthusiasm that I can get through it.
I have something to say to those people who say to you or to me, easier said than done. And that is, what amazing thing has happened in your life, or what is critically important that is ever easy?
That's true. That's very
What
true.
about life is easy in the first place? You want
Yeah.
an easy life? Go work at a job where you don't have to make any decisions, that you could pay the bills, and not have any responsibility. I'd like to figure out what that would be. However, are you going to be excited? Are you going to be enthused? Are you going to contribute to society? Probably not.
Yeah.
Um, but when you say easier said than done, or might be easy for you to do, no, it's not easy for me to do.
The
It's
process.
important
Yeah.
for me to do.
Yep.
That's the difference. If it's important, you'll do it.
That's
If it's
right.
not important and you want to continue living your life the way it
You
is,
won't. That's
that's
exactly
fine.
right.
Your choice. Your choice. We're
Yeah.
talking about resilient decisions. You don't have to bounce back from a choice that you don't deviate from,
Very true.
because what you're doing is you're fitting your life into the box that you've created based on that one decision that you made years ago, as opposed to the resilient decision making that's elastic and fluid, that changes over time and as you change and everything else. And the second thing is, I am not the same person that I was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I'm not, even 5 years ago, because life changes, circumstances change, all of that. And, we tend to try to put them in a frame of mind that makes it easy for us to adjust to.
That's
Just
right.
yesterday, on a call with my client and a couple of his um, partners, was really quite interesting, because he made a comment that we need more people like you in the corporate environment, especially since COVID. Post COVID, we are dealing with like a different environment altogether. And I said to him, the first thing that you need to get rid of is the post COVID. We're not over COVID. We're just integrating what we learned from COVID into how we operate right now. COVID's
Yep.
not gone.
No,
It's
it's just
going
different.
to be back and forth, and it's going to morph and it's going to change, and we need to change with it. So we've
That's
learned to
exactly right.
navigate things, not necessarily easily, but we're not post COVID. We're not on the backside of it. We've just morphed our lives to figure things out with COVID.
That's right.
That's the difference. It's now integrated. And, we like to make things easy in our heads. It's easier for us to believe COVID's gone. It's on the other end of us. People are getting it every single day.
You're right.
They're still getting it. It's what is your mindset? So I'm going to leave it there. Having these definitive mindsets, it's good or bad, it's right or wrong, it's past or present, it's before this. I'm writing about that right now, the befores and the afters. Or even myself, who I was before cancer, who I was after cancer.
Mm-hmm.
It changes your life. There's no question. And what do you do with it? How does that increase your resilience instead of, knock you down a peg?
Yeah.
So I want to leave it there, because I think we've given our listeners a lot of food for thought. And I
Yeah.
would really love to hear from them, actually. Where do you find yourself stopping dead when you have to make a decision, thinking that it's all or nothing? It's rarely all or nothing. And what do you need to consider? And how do you make the best informed decision that you can?
And that decision being today in your present mind and your present experience, and may
Yeah,
have been different 5 years ago, like you said, or 20 years ago. Might be different 5 years from now. But this gives you the opportunity to look at the here and now, and that's all we have, right? That's the only thing we have at this point, is our ability
that's
to
right.
look at that and to address it in the present. So this is another phenomenal topic. Really love this one. So, Donna, how can our viewers who see this on YouTube, or our folks that are tuning in and listening to us on the podcast platforms, get engaged in this conversation and see all the other things that are happening relative to this show, and maybe even put together some suggestions for us on topics they'd like us to cover in a future episode?
Best way is to join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper. Let us know what you think, or suggestions for shows, as Steve said. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to continue the conversation online.
Absolutely. Well, Donna, another great episode. Thank you so much for the conversation. This is food for thought. I'm going to go get my journal right now and start doing a little heavy lifting in my own respect. So I sure appreciate that. We will be back again very soon with another episode of Inquiring Minds. But until then, Donna, take care.
Have a great one.